another episode of Living Room Wisdom, where your story is your glory. I am Patrina Wisdom, abundance activator, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and founder of the Pure Abundance Retreats. And I'm super excited to bring this interview today with the beautiful and very important to me, Dr. Golightly from EmpowerMed. So Carleigh, welcome, welcome, welcome. We finally got this on calendar.
We did it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you here. This woman is phenomenal. I'm gonna let her tell you a little bit about herself, but for those of you who maybe follow my journey, I haven't been very vocal about my journey yet, but there's this little thing that women go through called menopause or perimenopause.
Minor thing.
And Carleigh has been just a godsend for me. So before we jump into like what you do and your magic in the world, I really just want to share with the audience, not what you do, but who you are. So if you could just share a little bit, who is Carleigh on the inside?
So, like you mentioned, so what I do, what my career is a very small piece of who I am, but what it does is it really encompasses the things about me that I think are the most important. So the thing that I am most passionate about is helping other human beings to look and feel their best, right? So I went through, a variety of struggles in my own when I was younger, and that really propelled me towards wanting to be in this career where now I could help to bring other people up in such a way where they didn't feel like they were brought down by, physical complaints like I was when I was so much younger. So I would say, I'm really characterized by just a lot of compassion for other human beings and the struggles that they're going through, and really just wanting to meet people where they are and help them to take that next step.
Yeah, I love that. And actually what you do for a career speaks volumes to your values and who you are as a person anyway, and the things that are important to you. But what I would love to know is, how did you get on this path? Like, what's been your greatest challenge, and how has that impacted or informed your current career, your current work?
It's a really great question, because not a lot of people wake up in the morning as a 5-year-old and think that they want to become a naturopathic doctor.
Yeah.
It's not a term that most people are familiar with, and even I wasn't familiar with until I was about 22. So what happened with me, so my journey began when I was about 15 years old. And when I was 15, I had been diagnosed by my doctors with a bunch of different disorders, right? Major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, for those who don't know, not fun. And then of course, all of like the premenstrual issues that girls tend to deal with around those times, really like intense cramping, mood swings, things like that. And I had gone to my doctors, and they had told me, essentially, there's nothing you can do. This is just your life. These are the cards you've been dealt. Here's your pills, on your way, right? And I even remember asking them from a very young age, like, there's got to be something that contributes to this. Is it something that I'm eating? Is it some way that I'm acting? Is it an environment that I'm in? What is this? And every time I just got the same answer. Nope, this is the rest of your life. You're going to have to take these forever. And I have a very naturally rebellious spirit. Pretty much
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God, right? Thank God. Pretty much you tell me something to do and I will say,
Yeah.
I'm going to figure out a different
Questioning
way.
authority.
Yes, I've always been that way. Much to the chagrin of my father. He did not like that.
No.
But so I had a rebellious nature, and I didn't believe those answers that I was getting. I didn't believe that all of these hundreds or even thousands really of years of medical research that's been out there. If you think of, Ayurvedic medicine, which started in India over 2,000 years ago, that the culmination of all of that is just, here's your pill, there's nothing we can do for you, right? So I took personal responsibility, and I started looking for my own answers for everything. And it took me a really long time to get there. And I'll be honest, I didn't really experience, I would say, full healing until I was about the age of 25. So about 10 years later. But it was because I went out and started looking into things like nutrition. I started understanding the role and the importance of exercise for mental health. Such a big topic. And then I was lucky enough, very fortunate enough, to be introduced to this thing called naturopathic medicine when I was in my early 20s. And it just spoke to me in such a huge way, because for the first time, here was a form of medicine that actually acknowledged the internal power of the body to heal itself. Basically, the whole premise of naturopathic medicine is we have all we need in here. Sometimes we just got to urge it along.
Yeah.
And then added to that, it's about figuring out what are the root causes behind why people get sick, right? So for me, let's take the irritable bowel, the IBS piece of things. For me, that was caused by, number one, eating horrible foods. So things like gluten and dairy,
easy to do,
processed foods, right? They're so common, they're so easy. And when you're a teenager, you eat a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
So it was a combination of that, plus the fact that I had a lot of anxiety about things. And that was primarily because of my mind, right? So a lot of it had to do with figuring out what those roots were, changing them, taking the responsibility and actually changing them, and then being consistent with that over a period of time. And so this, of course, led me towards naturopathic medicine. I realized that this was the form of medicine that I wanted to practice and I wanted to help people with for the rest of my life. And here we are.
So tell me, because your journey started quite early, how was that for your parents? Because, I mean, obviously, if you were in the position that you were having these different diagnoses, it was in the environment, right? It's what you were being fed at 15, not what you were necessarily feeding yourself. So how did that go over with your family when you start discovering all of these things? Did they jump on board? Was there some resistance? How did that all pan out?
It was like 50-50. I would say that we had my dad is very much into trying to heal things with, he's very movement oriented.
Okay.
So anytime you bring up
well, that's
exercise
positive.
with him, yeah, he's like, oh, great, awesome, you know, if we can heal things with movement, fantastic. So he was on board with that. My mom also, I would say she's on board with it. They both have an understanding. I wouldn't say that they are so much like they haven't drank the Kool-Aid to the level that I have, you know.
Right.
But they get it. They understand it. Now, I will say, even now to this day, when I try to give either of my parents advice based off the knowledge that I have, it's like,
yeah.
But that's just the way that it is.
And that makes sense. And that's why I asked the question, because I can imagine, I mean, I've got a gob of children. One of my kids come to me trying to school me about, you know, certain things. And there's this position of like, hey, wait, I'm the parent. I've been around longer than you.
Like,
I have more, right?
I changed your diapers. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So the amount of strength and the amount of like, being inquisitive and so much so that it moved you into action to go find the solutions and then implement those solutions, which probably for you was a little easier because you were young. But that was why I asked about the family, because the longer that we have these, you know, quote unquote bad habits, right? Or these ways of being, the harder it is to change that. And so it's great that they know it here, but that is what I wanted to find out, is if they've actually kind of jumped on board. Yes.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I was the first person in my family, like I gave up dairy for a long time in an effort to try to fix my stomach.
Yes.
I also gave up gluten. And I remember at first my family was looking at me
People
like
think
I was
you're nuts.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. They were like, this is absolutely not the thing. You're just being way too nuts about this. I'm like, so what? If it makes me feel better, I don't care, you know? And certainly there was a little bit of strife at home because it meant that I now needed separate meals prepared for me, and that was more work. But hey, then I learned how to cook, which was also very cool. You know? Yeah. So while it was a little bit of a struggle, it certainly came with some bonuses also. Again, forced me to continue to take responsibility. Yeah. And taught me a lot of skills at a very early age.
It's interesting because there's such a big disconnect between things that we know and the things that we actually do. And I mean, I'm very guilty of this because I am the most disciplined person once I make a decision. And I'm not always ready to make that decision. Or I'll go hard for like X amount of time and then, okay, default back for a little while until I'm ready to go again. So what advice can you give someone like me? So there's two people that I want you to speak to. I want you to speak to the person who's having trouble finding the motivation to become disciplined enough to make those life changes, if maybe you have some tips there. But then also for the person who will commit and go hard for a while and then fall off, and just some words of wisdom from Dr. Carleigh Golightly.
Yes. So, And this is so great because I see these two types of people
all the time. I'm sure.
All the time. So I have had these conversations over and over again. So to type number one, to the person who's having a really, really hard time committing to making the decision, I would say do a little mental exercise for yourself. So picture yourself 5 years from now, right? What is life going to look like 5 years from now if you don't make the change that you know that you need to make, right? So say that, for instance, a really common thing with my women who are in peri or menopause or something along those lines is weight, right? They really want to change their weight and they're really upset about the way that they look. Then when they look at the mirror, they feel very unhappy. And so what I ask them to do is go through this mental exercise of, if you don't change things and you stay status quo in 5 years, what is your life going to look like, right? And so once we go through that exercise, it becomes now a lot easier to have the discussion of, hey, maybe we need to cut out some of the junk food in your life. Maybe we need to not have 6 glasses of wine every night, you know?
So just kind of start smaller and take steps.
Small. And that's the other piece for this type of person. Start very small and allow yourself to be successful with something really small, because that's what sets you up to take those next bigger steps.
I like that.
Yeah.
Building the confidence.
Exactly. You know, sometimes it's been as simple as, hey, instead of 6 glasses of wine at night, how about we do 3, right? You know, just bring it down a little bit. You think you can give me just 3? And then we build from there.
Yeah.
And then to the second type of person, the person who gets going and then falls off the wagon. This is a piece of advice from my mom. This is a saying that she always says that I just love. I've come to love it the older I've gotten. And she would always tell me, be kind to yourself.
Right.
Yeah. Just be kind to yourself.
And that's my motto. And that can sometimes be a trap too, because it's like, I'm not going to bully myself. Just to give you a little history, and I don't even know if I've ever shared this with you. Breaking news.
All right.
Breaking news. I had a bit of a eating disorder growing up. And it was because I grew up in a family of people that were just very like beauty conscious, weight conscious. And it's like, oh, you know, grab my stomach like, oh, you put on some weight. What's going on? You know, just not in a mean way. They mean it lovingly. However, the effects of it, and you become very conscious of that. And so because I did struggle with food for so long, now that I can, you know, eat and have a healthy relationship with food and also with my body that changes ongoing, I do have to be very kind to myself, or I get to be very kind to myself. However, there are times where, you know, you may need to put a little bit more pressure on yourself. So is there anything you can offer? Like when is the time to be kind to yourself and give yourself grace? And when is the time to like really say, hey, get your ass back on the horse and, you know?
I'd say if it gets to a point where you actually can honestly look in the mirror and say the decisions that I'm making right now are leading me towards that person that I want to be on a consistent basis, right? So if you're looking back at, say, like your past week or so, and you can say, hey, 80% of this week, I made decisions that were in service of the person that I'm trying to become. That's a moment where I would say, okay, if you slip up a little bit, you're good.
Yes.
Right? If you look back at your week and you go, only 20% of the time I made decisions that are going to lead me towards this person that I want to be. Yeah. There's a moment to kind of get your butt in gear. Reality check, right? And that's why looking back at your week and actually doing, you know, not just planning forward. We spend so much time looking at our planners and scheduling our next week, but actually looking back on what went well this last week. You know, what decisions did I make? Those types of things are so powerful in actually helping you to move forward, because you can in real time actually say, okay, so I wanted to do this thing. Did I execute? You know? And if you didn't execute, yeah, that's probably a time to get it in gear.
I like that. I like that perspective shift, because it's still very kind and loving to yourself. So one other thing I know about you is that you engage in fitness competitions.
Yes, ma'am.
Which I've always admired people that can do that, because as disciplined as I feel I am, I've never developed that level of discipline. And so I would love to know how you feel fitness competitions and that part of your life has contributed to overall your success and abundance that you be in the world.
You know, one of the things that I learned when I started doing these is the less you thought about it, the more successful you would be.
Yeah.
So it was, again, back to this idea of execution, right? You create your plan and then you don't think about it, right? So it was when my alarm went off at 5 a.m. and I needed to go to the gym, it was don't press snooze, don't even think about it, just get out of bed and do the things that you know that you need to do. The other piece is that it taught me a new level of preparation, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to be successful at something, particularly if, say, your health, something like that, eating is something that people are always looking to change. You want to be successful at that, prepare, right? Because we're less likely to make a good decision if we go out without a plan in place.
True.
And, now we're with friends, we're at a restaurant, and you just think, whatever, when in Rome. Let's just enjoy the fries and everything. Let's have a great time.
Yeah.
But, if you make a decision where you say, hey, beforehand, I'm going to eat a really protein-rich meal. That way I'm not starved by the time that I get to the restaurant and I don't make a poor decision. And then I'm going to research the menu beforehand so I know what I'm going to get. That way when I get there, I don't look at everything else and get tempted by anything, right?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So it's a level of preparation that you have to get into. And then, again, going back to the goal. What's the goal, right? And so for me, I would use that same strategy that I just talked to you about there, where I'd look back on my week and say, hey, did I execute this at least 80% of the time? Now, when I got really into the heat of the competition, it would be 90% or even 100% of the time, because you don't have room for error at that point. But at least looking back and going, where did I perhaps fall short this last week, and how can I improve next week? And again, coming back to not beating yourself up about it, right? Just saying, where did I fall short and how can I get better? And
but what motivated you to even go from, eating well and having a healthy lifestyle to I'm going to do competitions?
Like, I'm a little bit of a nut. Maybe.
Okay. Did you do sports as a child? You've always been kind of a competitor.
I played basketball, I rock climb. I do all kinds of things.
I love it.
But really what it kind of comes back to is I love seeing what my body is capable of.
Yeah.
You
like a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, we have this gift of these incredible bodies and they can do such amazing things.
Yes.
And I want to see where that limit is.
Well, honey, let me tell you, you're about to find out.
I know.
And you can share. I don't want to spill the beans for you, but I mean, you're about to face the ultimate challenge.
The ultimate challenge as a woman.
Of motherhood.
Yes, ma'am.
So you cannot tell, but she's got a baby bump under there. Yeah, so congratulations. It's very, very exciting. And how are you feeling? Do you feel, I feel like you've done all the training for motherhood, but motherhood is messy as fuck, let me tell you.
I know, and I'm going to need to buy your book for you.
Exactly. Motherhood's not for punks, right?
Little plug for you there.
Yeah, absolutely. But how are you feeling? You literally, from the outside looking in, you have it all together. You've got the health, all the things, tick, tick, tick. Yeah. And now you're about to go into the messiest season of your life. So how are you preparing for this?
So for the last, so I'm 14 weeks right now, as I told you earlier. So for the last 8 weeks, I have literally been not at all the person that I was just describing to you.
Right.
Not even close. I have not worked out in almost 8 weeks. I went from being the most disciplined about my nutrition to literally eating like an 8-year-old child. Mac and
Baby wants it. Baby wants it.
Hot dogs, French fries, fish sticks.
Right.
I had fish sticks for the first time since I was probably 10. Just the most ridiculous foods. And it's been actually very cool because it's taught me a lot. It's been very humbling, number one.
Right.
Trying to get through all of that nausea and all of that fatigue. And then also looking around at all the other women that I know in my life who have had children and realizing, my God, they all went through this too. And they made it. Good Lord, how did we do this?
Right.
It's given me a huge appreciation of just women in general and the things that we're able to go through when we feel like absolute crap. I think that's just so cool. And then it's also taught me to just let go, just not be so, because I'm very good at being very disciplined. I'm really good at it. That's one of my strong suits.
Do you have perfectionist tendencies as well? Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so this has really taught me, it's been an exercise in humbling myself and just letting go and releasing myself to the whole process.
I'm glad to hear you're getting that lesson at 14 weeks.
Yeah.
I am now a grandmother of a 15, almost 16-month-old, and watching my daughter, who, you know, perfectionist, like everything in a pretty little bow, watching her go through this journey of motherhood. I mean, on one hand, I empathize, and on the other hand, I'll be honest, I kind of chuckle. I'm like, right? Like, payback's a bitch. But it's so fun to watch the journey. You know, I'm so far removed from it now. My youngest is 13. I have a 13 and a almost 17-year-old in the house. But I'm so far removed from that journey now that watching it over and over again, I look and I go, oh my God, I did that like 4 times? How? So you, as badass as you are right now, you are about to like blossom and evolve into just this amazing being. And it's very exciting. So I'm happy to initiate you into the Motherhood Club.
Thank you.
And to see how your practice and your work evolves as you go through this, you know, iteration of your life. So
I'll tell you, it's given me just such a big, like I said, a bigger compassion for just women in general and the things that we go through. Because I'll be honest, when I first started in medicine, I didn't necessarily want to work with women specifically. I was really very interested in like athletes and biohacking and stuff like that. But I've just grown so much more into this whole idea that, you know, women, we have so much to offer.
Yeah.
And we get very sometimes rough options when it comes to our health. Like you take the whole perimenopause, menopause thing, and a lot of times it's just grin and bear it.
yeah.
And I think that sucks, first of all. I don't think that we deserve that. And I also think that, you know, there's no reason why those years after our childbearing years can't be our best years yet.
Agreed.
Right? We have so much wisdom to offer, right? Like you, so much wisdom to offer in these years. Why should we also be fighting with brain fog and mental clarity and low energy and all that stuff? Like
and loss of sex drive, which is not a problem anymore, thanks to Dr. Golightly.
Very important part of life. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that my next decades are going to be the best decades. I feel, especially now that I'm past all of the menstrual cycle stuff, or almost past it. So yeah, I mean, your work is incredibly impactful. I love what you do. I love how you do it. From the time we met, we kind of locked eyes across the room at an event. It totally was. I just loved everything about your energy, and I wanted to know more about who you are. So I feel very honored that I've had an opportunity to get to know you better. I'm even more honored that you're my naturopathic doctor. And is there anything as we wrap up here that, for the people out there listening, you know, that you feel like you would have needed to hear if you were sitting in their seat right now and looking to make some changes?
Yeah, I would say it's never too late. That is definitely something that I hear a lot of from people is, I'm too insert things here.
Right.
Even I'm too young. I'm too old. You know, it's gone too far. Everything. It's never too late. I mean, and you can talk about anything there, whether it's you want to write a book, you want to start a business, you want to become a better parent, anything. It is never too late to start. So that is something that I wish people had told me when I was younger, and at every age. I feel like we constantly need to be reminded of that, but it's never too late. So that would be my words of wisdom.
So take a page out of her book and take on all the new challenges every single day. So with that, we're going to go ahead and bring this to an end. This has been a lot of fun. I could talk to you for hours because I'm very interested in all of this. But for now, we are going to say au revoir, farewell, Avitas, and good night. And I thank you for listening, tuning in to Living Room Wisdom, where your story is your glory. We release interviews with beautiful women just like this every single week. So follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, and make sure that you tune in right here next week. See you later.